Sturdy for 30 podcast. This week we've got Larry Smith here, the voice as he's known on Illini guys. Mister. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what you'd call yourself. He does anchor. He's done a little bit of everything. So thanks for joining us today, Larry. Tell me about the Illini guys project a little bit, about your thoughts on it and your input there.
Yeah, you came up several months ago, and just a few of us kind of got together, and obviously, as you know, we've been friends for a long time. Big Illini fans since we were kids. I think of, when I was in grade school, I had a little black and white with rabbit ears, and I would sit in my room and watch. This is James Griffin and Derek Holcomb and Eddie Johnson, Mark Smith, way back, Kevin Bontemps, all those guys, and we just began to think about it in terms of. What if we took some of the conversations that we had and the contacts that we have, and we did a website. I probably have 4 or 5 different chats I'm involved in that people invited me into. I didn't start them, but I'm in, and I find myself talking during games with all these other different people. What if there's one portal where we could do that? And here it is now, about to launch, and I think it's going to have something for all fans. If you're a diehard fan, or if you have just some maybe non-sports connections to Illinois, I think there's something in there for everybody.
It's great. It's exciting. I think it's a little bit different than everything else. So I think that what makes it stand out. Of course, it doesn't hurt that Illinois basketball is pretty good right now. They're having a great season, coming off the win over Purdue. They beat Purdue 66-58. I think it was nice to see them win a game, maybe when they didn't need Ayo Dosunmu to go off. People say, well, he was this or he was that. He only had 12 points and, 5 rebounds. Just maybe not a typical Ayo game. When you come up back-to-back 30-point games, that's obviously you can't keep scoring 30 every game. But I think it's impressive that they were able to grind out a win, because it was a different kind of win for them. They've been scoring, in fast 7 seconds, and Purdue took them out of transition, but they were still able to get the win. They defended well, and so it's exciting to see them win some games. What do you think about the Illini so far?
I agree, and you and I both had those questions. Why launch this now in the middle of a pandemic? Well, because it's Illinois basketball, and we're enjoying the best season we've seen. Probably in 15 years. If they win against Northwestern, they're 5-1 in conference. That's their best conference record through 6 games since the 2005 conference season. So there's a lot to be excited about. I couldn't agree with you more. I think we kept waiting for. I kept every media timeout checking, saying, "Gee, Ayo's still scoreless. Ayo's still scoreless." But it gave everyone else a chance to step up and get it done without him. He was happy to be a facilitator. What you've got with Illinois right now is that you actually have enough weapons that it makes this team dangerous on offense. That you've got Ayo and Kofi, the 2 All-American, All-Conference guys everyone talks about, but you also have 3 shooters on the floor. Devontae Williams, are you kidding me with what he's doing? Trent's one of the all-time scorers. He can hit threes. Adam Miller's a freshman. He's struggling a little bit, but he's dangerous enough. You've got to focus on him. In fact, during that run, started by Devontae's 3, 6 different Illini scored baskets. If Ayo's doing what Ayo usually does, that doesn't happen. And with a veteran coached team, Purdue's a young team, but Matt Painter's a good coach. I agree with you. That was exciting to see them come through, grit that out, and get a win. It's the Big Ten. I don't care what team it is. You take a win in the Big Ten and you move on. And it was great to see them fight through that 16-0 run to start the second half and come back and get the win.
Yeah, it was almost one of those, looking at old school, as one of those Big Ten slobber knockers. Isn't that the phrase they used? It was one of those grinders. So our first guy on the podcast today is going to be former Illini basketball player. He won a couple Big Ten titles back in the day. Sean Harrington. He also spent some time as the Dobo, when he was actually a recruiting assistant for Illinois during his time. So Sean's got obviously a huge connection to Illinois, graduating from Elgin, and then coming down and having a great career at Illinois for 4 years. And what do you have any Sean Harrington memories from when he played?
Just solid. I mean, there's no one play that stands out, but it's one of those that to watch his career grow, as you mentioned, in coaching and now at the analyst stuff he does. He's one of those guys that when I know he's on the call, I'm going to sit down and listen to the game. I don't care who's playing. He was one of those guys that just, I was so thrilled that he chose Illinois back when he was being recruited out of high school. And then he was always there. And I knew we had a better chance to win with Sean there as a part of the team. And I know he bleeds orange and blue, and it's great to have him on your podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting. I always go back and obviously saw a lot of the games, most of the games he played in, but I remember the Minnesota game up at the barn when he hit 6 threes, and help, that year. And, he was a guy who also had to kind of, check his ego a little bit at the end, his last year, when these young guys come in and he's coming off the bench a little bit, you kind of go through that process, think you're starting. So I think you see a guy who's a team player, and I think that's important on your teams. And you've got a veteran guy who's willing to do that and come off the bench and still he's still playing 20 to 25 minutes, but just playing a different role, and it keeps everybody happy and having the maturity to understand that. So I think that was important for him. So when we come back, we'll have Sean with us, and we'll talk about the Big Ten season, the Illinois season, and maybe a few stories from back in the past when Sean was a player and coach. So should be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely.
All right, Sean Harrington, former Illini basketball guard and former coach, now ESPN analyst and college basketball aficionado, is joining us today. And welcome, Sean. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Of course, we don't see anybody today in today's day and age. It's more, this is how we see them, through a computer screen. So, but it's still good to talk to you. So are you happy 2020 is finally over?
I think so. Yeah, I think everybody's ready to turn the page. And obviously, being basketball guys, we've got basketball on, so we can't complain too much. And we're able to watch basketball and break it down, analyze it. So as long as we can do that, life is okay, right?
Yeah, there is a positive there. So, yeah, it's been different. I don't know if you've been able to. I know you guys called most of the games you called have probably been remote so far. Have you been able to go to any arenas so far and see any of these kind of no fans games?
Yeah, I have, and so it is different. It's very different to be in an arena with no fans there. I think it's really hard for maybe your juniors and seniors that have played 2-3 years with packed stadiums, packed arenas, and now you kind of go in there and, they do a good job of kind of pumping up a little crowd noise and music and stuff like that. But obviously there's nothing like a full arena, and it feels like an exhibition or a practice or like a secret scrimmage kind of a thing. So I think that gets overlooked a little bit. You got to give some of these players some credit to come in and night out to kind of get their own energy and create some of that when, to be honest, it does. It feels like it's almost an exhibition or a scrimmage at times.
Does it make you appreciate those old Penn State players more now?
Yeah, maybe. You're right. I try to get your own crowd noise in there, and it's very different. And the play in front of kind of a quiet arena, it's just like, who's got the advantage, right? I don't know if obviously everyone's playing under the same conditions, but would some of these outcomes go the same way, one way or another, whether there was crowds in there? It really affects the game when the crowd is in an arena, and you feed off of it, whether you're the home team or the away team. So it has an impact on these games, no question.
So, obviously Illinois is off to a great start. They're ranked, I think 15th in the country. They're ranked in the, 7th in KenPom and 6th in Sagarin. What are your thoughts so far? I'm sure you've had a chance to watch them a few times. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like this team, and obviously the first thing you're going to do as a coach or, a fan at times, you're going to go see what's the negative, right? Well, what are they doing that we don't like, or that you think they can get better? But to just real quick general on them, I think they're built for the long term. You've got two really good players in Io and Kofi that you're talking inside, outside, that can take over a ball game, dominate a ball game. Both have been very consistent. I think maybe last night might have been Io's, I won't say worst game, but maybe most quiet game, and he's still going to get you, double figure points. So I think when you got two guys like that can dominate inside and out, that have been very consistent over the course of, the early going here, but a little over a third of the season now, you got two horses that you can ride. It allows everybody else to kind of fall into their roles. But they can defend when they need to. They can win kind of an up-tempo game. They can win a grinded out kind of sloppy game. So they can win different ways. And you've got some experience on this team, and then you got some really good youth as well. So I think it's a really good dynamic on this team. It's a fun team to watch. And I like the way that they're built right now.
Obviously, when Io and Kofi declared they were coming back, I think that definitely what you looked at it and said they're going to be good, right? And so, but it's been I think some of the other guys have really stepped up. I mean, you're a shooter. Obviously, you were a great shooter. You're in the top 10 Illinois career 3-point shots, over 40% for your career. But I mean, did you ever have a streak like DeMonte Williams is having right now, where like every time he shoots it, you think it's going in and he misses. It's like, well, what did you do wrong? He's shooting almost 70% from three. And it's really been amazing because he's a guy who was not known as a shooter coming up. He wasn't known as a shooter his first 3 years. And now he's leading the Big Ten and the nation in 3-point shooting.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive. And I mean, you're talking 70%. It's not 7 for 10. He's got a decent sample size now. And I think he's up to a little over 30 attempts. I think if you count last night. So it's a lot of attempts now to be that consistent at that high of a number for this long now with that many attempts. It's really impressive. And I remember going through maybe 2 or 3 game stretches where you were just in a zone and kind of in a rhythm. I had a couple, 4 for 5s, 5 for 6s that were back-to-back, games kind of a thing. But you're talking, this is over a month of actual time. And this is over now, 10 games or so. And, it's, you said you're surprised now when he misses. When it releases, you expect it to go in. And, the shot looks good. And I think the biggest thing is you just mentioned the percentage was not there coming into the season. I think he was a low 20% 3-point shooter coming into the year. So it shows what you can do in an off season. If you're going to put in time, if you're going to put in the effort, if you're going to put in that gym work, you can correct the jump shot. It also tells you what confidence does for you. He's shooting the ball with all kinds of confidence right now. When you believe it's going to go in, more than likely it's going to go in, and he's taking really good shots. And when you watch the shots he's taking, they're in rhythm. They're within the offense. He missed one last night, and I think it was in front of their bench, and it was a bad shot. It was quick. It was kind of running down the floor. That wasn't his game. And so it's like you see that. Don't take those kinds of shots. When he's taking the shots he's been taking the whole season, he's going to make a lot of them. I don't think he's going to stay at 70%. Eventually that's going to kind of come down, but he can be a very good shooter for this team moving forward as long as he keeps doing what he's been doing so far.
Yeah, it's been impressive.
I was going to say, Brad, if I can jump in, Sean had great points. 24% shooting from three in his first 92 games, and 67% since then. The last 3 games of last year and now this year. I think that's the difference maker. He's the guy you didn't see coming, and it's one more thing the defenses have to worry about.
You had, I always go back to I remember your career, because I'm older than you. I mean, that doesn't mean you're young, but I'm definitely older than you. And I remember your career when you hit 6 threes up at the barn, right? And I remember that game. And so that was kind of one of those things where you were in the zone. I think Coach Self talked about that after the game, how impressive that was. Is that one of your best memories, probably?
It's right up there. Yeah, I had to bust that one. I don't watch a lot of old footage, but I had to bust that one out to show the kids the other day. Just kind of like, yeah, your old man could make a few shots once in a while. So, that was a fun one. I think it was 3 threes in like a minute stretch, and we went from down 4 to up 5, or down 5 to up 4 in a minute stretch. So, you love to do something like that at home with the crowd, but it's almost even more enjoyable when you do something like that on the road. And it went from crowd kind of into it. They have momentum in Minnesota to just silence and, force them to call a timeout. And yeah, those are memories that stick with you for a while. And those are some fun times.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And now so you had an interesting thing. A lot of people have talked about Andre Curbelo entering the starting lineup. I mean, that's because Illinois had a couple slow starts, and I know I go back to your history, and your senior year, you came off the bench, and you've got some young guys coming in, and you came off the bench. I mean, talk about your, how that was for you. I mean, obviously as a senior, you're thinking, well, I should start. I've been here for 4 years, but then you've got some talented freshmen, and talk about how that was for you.
Yeah, and I think it's player to player, and I didn't mind, either way. It really didn't affect me too much. And sometimes players do enjoy coming off the bench. And, you just kind of look at it. Sometimes you can kind of see the flow of the game, especially if you're a freshman, just kind of get a feel for the sense of what type of game is this. Some guys are comfortable seeing how that plays out in front of them before they get in there. Sometimes you have a little bit of those nerves and those jitters, and then it just kind of goes away once the game kind of starts. And so then when it's your number to be called, you're ready to go and you can kind of relax. Rotations play a little bit of a part in that sometimes as well. Who are you going against on the other team? Obviously, they may be starting their best five. So matchups may not be in your favor to start. I saw some of the quotes that they made last night. Cabello's obviously very comfortable coming off the bench. He shows it. The other thing is, I know they're getting off to slow starts, but do you want to mess with kind of a good thing right now, right? You're 4-1 in the Big Ten. It hasn't cost you a game yet. You've been able to kind of overcome some of these slow starts. Does it completely mess with maybe his game? Who would you sit right now? Maybe Miller, because he's struggling a little bit. Does it mess with his head that he's coming in off the bench? So you got to be careful with some of that sometimes, just to switch things, just to switch them. And again, now you're messing with the rotation. So I think as long as everybody's okay with it, as long as you're winning games, guys are comfortable starting, guys are comfortable coming off the bench, you don't really mess with it a whole lot until maybe there's a lot of concerns in those situations. But there are guys that just prefer to come off the bench. They just like to see what happens in front of them before they get out there. And maybe it saves foul trouble. Maybe you could have picked up a quick foul in that first 2-3 minutes, and now maybe you have to take them out anyway, or, something like that kind of messes with your rotation. So you got to be careful sometimes changing things when things are going well.
You played with some pretty good freshman point guards back in the day. And so what are your thoughts on Curbelo so far? I feel like he's been pretty impressive with his vision and his ability to just find a way to get in the paint. And I got to feel I'd love to play with him. I feel like I could score with him there. I struggle to get open most of the time, but I think he'd get me open. So
he'll get you open. That's exactly right. And Curbelo's a really fun player to play with because he finds you in the spots where you need the basketball. And so it's one of those things you see all the time. A big guy's running the floor, right? You give it to him too early when he's at the free throw lane. Now he's either got to take that long step or he's got to put the ball on the floor. And now he's going to turn it over. He's not comfortable. He misses the shot. So he's going to get the ball to his teammate in the right spot at the right time into their shooting motion. And that's fun to play with. He sees the floor extremely well and knows where guys are supposed to be. And you teach it all the time. Don't leave your feet, right, before you know what you're going to do with the basketball. He seems to leave his feet and then knows he's got 2 or 3 more options while he's in the air, and he knows where those options are. So sometimes it almost looks like it's a bailout, but I believe he knows where those guys are supposed to be stationed. I believe he knows where they're supposed to be, and he finds them. And, he had, I think, 6 assists last night. It felt like 15. Like a lot of times you say someone had a quiet 20 points, you know what I mean? Or like, man, he had allowed 8 to 10 points last night. It seemed like he just made big shots. I feel like he makes big assists, and they're loud assists. And it's just like, I was shocked he only had 6. I thought for sure he was double-digit assists last night when I checked the box score at the end of the game, because he seems like he makes a big play. He seems like he makes the right play, and he gets multiple guys involved. I think 3 or 4 different guys were able to score on those 6 assists. So he gets everybody involved. It's not just one guy.
Usually Kofi's finishes are really loud after Curbelo passes to him. So we tend to remember those because he puts a hurt on. Curbelo got a dunk. I mean, so did you ever get a dunk in college? Sean, did you ever get a dunk?
No, I was never even close. I think I'm going to give people a heart attack if I try to go up and attempt one. So I never got that breakaway with a 30-point game on the line, that you could be able to go ahead and try it. But we got to give him credit. I think it was a dunk. We'll give him credit. I think the hand touched the rim last night.
It's all good. It's the lay in. I think I did that one too. You lay it in and grab the rim just to kind of pull the rim. Yeah, it was a dunk. It's a dunk. It counts, right? So no, but no, it's good. He's been impressive. Where you got to see a lot of Big Ten games, obviously, and where do you think Illinois fits in the Big Ten?
I like where they're at. This year, I feel like we've seen swings more than ever before, but they are a top team. and they definitely can win the Big Ten. And based on a game or two here or there, your opinion changes kind of day to day. I really like Iowa, but my hesitation with Iowa was, can they get stops? Can they really get 1, 2, 3 stops in a row late in a ball game to win them a game? They can score with anybody, but can they defensively get it done? They just kind of showed that at Rutgers. A couple big stops there late in the ball game on the road. Now my opinion kind of changes of Iowa a little bit. Hey, they showed that they can get some of those stops, down the stretch. That was my knock on them. My knock on Rutgers right now is, I feel like Rutgers is Illinois last year. They're kind of 1 year behind, where they haven't been good for a while. You watch them, they passed the eye test. They've won some big games, but you kind of are waiting for, like, are they going to fall off here at some point? Are they going to be able to be consistent throughout the year? And so you just maybe don't trust Rutgers quite enough yet, just because you want to see it over a course of a year or two before you have that faith in them. But they're right there. Wisconsin's the other one. They're just steady. In this climate, we talked about playing in front of no fans. Games are going to get canceled the day before a game. So you have this prep for 2-3 days. It gets canceled. Now you got to start prepping for another team. How do you respond to that mentally? I think seniors might respond to that in a good way. So they've got the seniors on that team. They're steady, and then they go and kind of lay an egg at home against Maryland. So then it kind of drops them. So I think you're going to fluctuate, but those are my top 4 right now. And you throw Illinois in there. It's going to change game to game, week to week based on those 4. But I really believe those 4 are in the running for the Big Ten. And I see that being a 4 kind of team race moving forward the rest of the season.
I would say one of the surprise teams is Illinois' next opponent, Northwestern. I think they've surprised a lot of people. They are, they weren't highly regarded coming into the season. Most people picked them to finish in the bottom 4, maybe just above Nebraska, perhaps, maybe 13th. So a lot of people had them at the bottom, but they've won some big games. They've won some good games, and they've been pretty impressive. What are your thoughts on Northwestern? And you go back to, it's an in-state. It's not really a rivalry as such. I think maybe it's more of a rivalry for Northwestern than it is for Illinois. But what are your thoughts on that game coming up and about the Northwestern team?
Yeah, I mean, they've impressed so far, right? I mean, no one expected this for them to be ranked. A team that obviously took a lot of hits last year, and really struggled. And there's some growing pains. They go through that, and guys got some heavy minutes. You learn from that. You get that experience. They're playing with a lot of confidence. And even in the loss at Iowa, I thought, they looked really good for long stretches of that game. And, Nance was really impressive the way he's able to step out, knock down shots, put it on the floor. So that could be a difficult matchup for Illinois. Just kind of, if that's Kofi guarding him, it's going to be tough for him to go out and move his feet when he goes on the dribble. Obviously, Georgie could be a good matchup for him, but then you're playing either 2 bigs or Kofi's out. So, that's one of them. And they're shooting the 3 really well. So when they start getting confidence and they're shooting the 3 well, it stretches out the defense, opens up some driving lanes. And when a team kind of gets hot like that, you have to find shooters in transition. You got to get hands up and be contesting, because if you can knock off 2, 3, 4 threes and, a couple minute stretch, that can really swing a ball game. So definitely some concerns there. I still want to see Northwestern maybe a little bit more before I completely jump on. They're very good, but before I get them in that kind of top half of the Big Ten, I'd like to see them, knock off a few more games here. Their stretch is brutal. I know everyone goes through it in the Big Ten, but and rankings are going to change. But as of last week, I thought they played like 12 out of the next 14 against ranked opponents. So, I mean, they could go, 5-9 in that stretch, and that wouldn't be awful when you're going against ranked opponents. But obviously that would really crush you in the Big Ten race and kind of push you down to that bottom half of the Big Ten. So we'll have to kind of see how they play out here over the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can go through a stretch in the Big Ten where you could go, I told some of the fans, I said, you go 500 over a tough stretch. That's really good. And people think, well, we lost a game. Well, you're going to lose games in this conference this year with nine ranked teams. You're going to lose some games. Is there a, when you look at the Big Ten and you talk about this, how do they pick NCAA tournament teams this year with so few non-conference games being played? How's that going to work, you think?
It's going to be difficult, and there's going to be complaints, but I think that's the case every year, and that's the beauty of the NCAA tournaments. There's 68 teams. So is somebody going to get left out? Of course they are, right? Is somebody going to get in that probably shouldn't have gotten in? Of course they are. But, you're talking about 4 or 5 teams maybe that should not got in, or 4 or 5 teams that should have got in over 68 teams. So, that's part of the beauty of March Madness, is to argue about the last couple teams that get in now, but just enjoy the process, enjoy the experience. Teams are going to get a fair chance to get into the NCAA tournament. There's going to be plenty of games, to kind of make your case, right? I mean, we're, knock on wood, things are going fairly smoothly. So it looks like we're going to have a large number of games to kind of judge these teams by. It doesn't look like anyone's just going to have 10, 12, 13, games on the books. It looks like everyone's going to get over that kind of 20 mark as long as things keep kind of going the way that they are. So, we're going to be able to judge these teams. We're going to be able to see them. You need to get as many non-conference games to kind of compare some of those. But I'm also a believer, if you're getting better towards the end of the year, shouldn't that matter, right? If you lost a non-conference game, I get it. That's your only chance to compare out-of-conference foes. But if you dropped a few games early and now you're hot towards the end, I think you should be credited for improving throughout the year. So, based on what these teams are doing here down the stretch, I know they don't look at the last 10 anymore. That used to be a criteria of how to get teams in, but I think that's important. I think it's important how you're playing down the stretch. If you're bad at the beginning of the year and you can prove and just continue to keep getting better, why should you be, get a bad knock because of something you did back in November when we're talking about it's March? So I think how you improve throughout the season should be something that you should look at.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's going to be, I think the eye test is going to be a little more important this year, maybe than other years, less computer ranking stuff, but yeah, I totally agree with that. So where are you at right now? I mean, what's the temperature down there? What's the weather like? Cause I'm sitting here with snow out my back door. So
we're getting chilly. It's 70 degrees. A cool front kind of came through. So we were in the 80s and it dropped a little bit. So it's a little cool for a couple weeks. We'll see if we can survive the harsh winters down here for the next couple weeks.
That's rough. I feel for you. I really do. That's tough. So you get to, while you're down there, do you get a lot of gelato while you're down there? I know you're a big gelato fan.
I am. Yeah. There's a few shops here and there that you can definitely hit up. But yeah, that was definitely an Italy thing when we. I went on a very strict diet on the Italy trip. It was gelato, pasta, and pizza, and if it wasn't one of those 3, then I wasn't touching it. So I went on quite a run, I think, of the gelatos.
Yeah, Burson said you used all of your per diem on gelato, so for the entire trip.
It's probably true. Yeah, I had to compare all the shops. So, it's a very scientific method. You had to get the lemon at every place because that was like the comparison. Who's lemon? Because that was kind of the clean the palate kind of a thing. And then you would get what they were known for at that shop as well. So you had to get 2 scoops of everything every time you went, and you had to get at least a handful of different shops to compare to make sure you had the best the shop down there. So we took advantage of that.
Do we know the best now? So if we're traveling to Italy, post pandemic, we get to go to Italy. The Sean Harrington approved gelato in Italy is what?
The stracciatella, which is like a shaved chocolate. So some of them have little like mini chocolate chips in it, but some of them were shaved. And it was shaved in there. It really kind of upped the flavor in it. So it's stracciatella, I believe, is how you pronounce it. But it's basically chocolate chip, but it was shaved, and it was top notch. I'll definitely that's definitely one to go to.
Yeah, this is the kind of information that's really important. We talk about college basketball. Gelato is much more important for future endeavors. There's no question. So we really like that. So, no, well, I appreciate you coming on, Sean. Thanks a lot. It's, obviously going back to the time, when you were, at playing at Illinois and then coaching at Illinois. It was great to get to know you. I thought you did a great job there. I will say that your Rebounders Club speech is still one of the best. Going back to when you're reading the accolades and you decided that we should play Chicago State more. I think that's pretty impressive stuff right there. Being able to come up with that on the fly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Got to make sure all those in-state teams are happy, right? Got to get those rivalries going.
Yeah. So Burst was telling me, we were talking about it. He said, Sean's up there speaking, and he says, he looks down and he says, 11 points against career high, 11 points against Chicago State, career high 15 points against Chicago State. Looks over at Coach Weber and says, we should have played Chicago State more. So,
Got to pad those stats, right? You guys appreciate that. And you got to get some of those walk-ons need minutes too. So you got to get some of those games in there where they can bump up some of those stats.
All right. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on, Sean. I appreciate it. Thought you look forward to hearing from you. What game are you calling this week?
Nothing right now. So that changes on the fly too with all the cancellations and stuff like that. So I'm just on the on deck. You got to be ready to drop of a hat anytime your number gets called. So it's been a crazy year. For the players, it's been crazy for the SIDs and behind the scenes TV work, all that. It's it's been nuts. So I guess all we can do is just enjoy it when we can get games and enjoy it when we get to watch them. And it'll definitely be a season we'll look back on and say, how did we get through that? But it's been fun while we've been able to.
Well, hopefully, if Illinois makes a run down the stretch, we'll have a lot more positive memories of this season at the end.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Larry.
Yep.
Appreciate you guys.
You got it.
Thank you.